Hey everybody, it's your old pal Chuck, and I am back with another review. And today, we're dipping a little into recent Transformers history by taking a look at the Kreo Battle Changer Starscream. Now, if you remember, Kreo were these Hasbro's attempt at introducing Lego into the Transformers line. And first, it started off with these larger building sets that you could build the vehicle, build the robot, and they came with these Lego Men style figures called Kreons. Well, the Kreons ended up being the stars of the show. They were more articulated than a Lego Man, and they just had this really cute fun factor with them. So Hasbro took the cue and started running with them, where we would get little play sets with Kreons instead of the larger robot building sets. And then they introduced the blind bags, called the micro changers, where you would get a Kreon with extra parts that you could build the robot and then build a micro vehicle mode, which was fantastic and closer to, I think, what the essence of the Transformers brand was. Then the last bit they did were actual building sets using a Kreon at the core, as you can see here, but having extraneous parts that you can build the limbs and it could actually transform without coming apart. Unfortunately, those figures came at the end of the life of Kreo. It unfortunately never really took off. As we all know, Lego has a real stranglehold on the building block market, unfortunately, and it also didn't help that when Hasbro tried to expand beyond Transformers and G.I. Joe, it kind of failed. There was a Dungeons and Dragons line, there was a Star Trek line. The Star Trek line was actually really cool, and as you saw, I did have a few of those sets, but the Dungeons and Dragons line, I think, you had maybe one or two sets, some blind bags, and then some game enhancements, because it was supposed to be also a simplified version of the Dungeons and Dragons role-playing game, and it just never went anywhere. And oh yeah, you also had Battleship. Battleship, basically, those molds were carried over into G.I. Joe, but regardless. My point being is, if you remember, I got Optimus Prime and Bumblebee. Optimus Prime was not good. Bumblebee was a little bit better. And these actually never made it fully to proper store shelves. They were found and are found in Market 6 locations, such as Dollar General and TJ Maxx and Marshalls. And I think they're even also up north in Canada, which is where a lot of them were coming from. This is actually still part of the Wave 1. This is Starscream. A little bit better build, but from Wave 2 on, you really had to find them in Canada, as well as the Verse packs that they did. As of right now, Kreo's dead in the water. So, you know, the triple changers that we saw at Toy Fair last year, doubtful they're going to come. And from what I've heard from Wave 2 on, the builds got a lot better. And I gotta tell you, Starscream is a lot better than Optimus Prime and Bumblebee. Still not great, but I have another set that I think is from like Wave 2 or 3 that you'll see there is a major improvement. Still not great, but a lot better. But anyway, this is Starscream. This is actually one of the figures I wanted for a very long time. Starscream was originally released way back in the first wave of the Kreon set, so you got the big set with a jet that you could build the jet, and then it was like a movie style jet with a G1 style robot, and he came with a Kreon. Other than that, the other Seekers were released here and there in other sets. I think actually the cone heads were released in the blind bags. So the cone heads are the only ones that are really micro changers. Although, you know, if you have Sunstorm, you can tell what the parts are that you can convert the other Kreons into micro changers. But I really wanted this. I liked the design. The build was fun. You know, it wasn't necessarily hard. The only issues I have with it is, and it's really going to vehicle mode, which we'll do in a few minutes here, that there's only one locking point. That was the issue with Optimus Prime. I think he actually maybe had two, and then Bumblebee had like one or two. And everything else, you just have to fold and bend into place properly. But like I said, the Kreo have always been more articulated than Lego men. You have ball joints in the shoulders, ball joints in the hips. And because of the fact that you've actually built the extra limbs, you have ball joints here in the elbow for proper rotation, as well as the knees. I wouldn't, go crazy with moving this guy around, because some of the parts can fall off, especially down here in the leg section. You have a lot of connections that are just one point of contact, and it's like stuff like these round little bits right here that are just pegging into like a single two stud brick, and then the other stud is going into like a little round disc. I've been building some Lego sets lately, so I'm starting to see what a lot of people have said about the Kreo builds, but we'll just get into the transformation. First, what you want to do is just go ahead and I would bring Starscream down into a neutral pose right there with the arms down. First thing, they actually tell you to rotate the head. I recommend just popping the helmet off and turning it around, because if you do it the other way, you do run the risk of the head underneath being a little crooked, not lined up properly with the helmet, and then possibly getting stuck. I've had that happen a few times with other crayons. It's not fun to get these out. The next step is you want to go ahead and rotate the forearms in, just like so. So the blue is facing inward. Next, what you can go ahead and do is pop the whole backpack off. Like I mentioned, these connections aren't that wonderful, but go ahead, flip up that whole section there. That'll be the nose cone. You can then bring this down, rotate the wings forward. I would recommend, if you notice how I'm doing it with the this part was there, where just in that one direction, it's actually a little bit easier so things don't hit. Come in underneath, rotate the null rays forward. I do like how the null rays were built. That was actually kind of cool. And they do peg into the arm quite nicely. But as you see, you can already see here that there's no locking point for the wings, no real locking point for the nose cone. The next step is you have the feet here. You want to just flip up the little blue bits that were like the feet, heel, whatever. That's the thrusters. Go ahead, accordion all this up. And then carefully what you want to do is basically situate it so that the hand grips around that peg. Just get a little, the instructions show the arms bending in such a way that they just can't with the way that the shoulders and the wrists are designed. So you want to just get it like that, so it's like sort of squarish. We'll do that again on this side, and this is basically the only locking point. This is one of my issues, that you're just basically locking it in like that. Go ahead, flip down the tail fins, and yep, there we go. We got ourselves a jet. Okay, so the jet mode is rather nice. It is obviously based off of G1 Starscream, but you do see some issues. I would have liked to have seen some way for the legs to peg together, because you do have a little gappage. I did fool around with it a little off camera, and just to squeeze it a little more together. I would also have liked, like I said, another connection point. I think connecting the hands to the legs, that's great, but something like I just said, connecting the legs together themselves. Other than that, the nose cone in this section, the only stopping is hitting the head. But, and the wings really, if you want to have him flap his wings or something, you can do that. But here for the tail fins, if you can actually knock them around. There's no solid stopping points. And yeah, but much better, much sturdier build than Optimus Prime, even though this backpack is now coming off 3 times now. But I think that's a bit more me than the kit. But yeah, much sturdier than Optimus Prime. I should mention, though, I have heard that the Optimus Prime available in the 2-pack with Megatron they've actually altered the build to fix a lot of the issues, added a couple parts to make a more cohesive unit, which is nice. But, so yeah, if you can find these in, like, your dollar stores and what have you, I would skip Optimus Prime. Maybe just get Bumblebee and Starscream. I've heard mixed things about Grimlock. The Wave 2 stuff, Hound, I heard it was really good. Shockwave is really good. I got Shockwave coming up to review. But, you know, other than that, I don't know. I've also heard that, like, on the official Hasbro website, they have the instructions for the triple changers. If you want to try doing that, you know, it'd be really cool. And I'm just throwing this out there because, I mean, I don't know if Lego has the same parts as used here. Try building something like this with a Lego set. If you can't find the instructions, I'm sure somebody on some group somewhere will be more than happy to share with you. You know, give you a couple scans. But I'd like to see people taking these battle changer builds and doing them with Lego bricks or Mega Blocks, what have you. So, that's about it. Like I said, Kreo is unfortunately a dead brand. You know, the only thing I've heard coming is maybe a Kreo set at San Diego Comic-Con this year for G.I. Joe, much like we had the Slaughter Marauder set. Honestly, you know, my interest in Kreo died when they stopped putting codes on the back of the blind bags. I don't know if you guys remember that. Got to a point, I mean, when they basically stopped with the micro changers, they cut out the codes, and I just lost interest because it's really difficult to find figures. And that's actually across the board when a lot of people lost interest. I actually think if it's anything like what happened with Lego, Hasbro probably got complaints from dealers that they were getting stuck with overstock of less desirable characters or builds, and that they had to stop putting codes so people could figure out who they were. So, this is your old pal Chuck for Battle Changer Starscream. We will see you next time.